This is Seasons of Discontent with your hosts Rick Snyder and Matt Combs on the Hogstye Network.
Welcome to Seasons of Discontent, Season 7, Episode 6, brought to you by Rick Snyder's Washington on YouTube. I'm Rick Snyder.
I'm Matt.
And we're back discussing all things Washington sports and life as part of the Mighty Hogstye Network on audio and here on YouTube on video. So, Matt, I was on with Sports Junkies the other morning, and they said, after this 0-3 preseason, record being irrelevant, but are your expectations better, worse, or the same? And I ran a poll, and I think about 60% of the fans on my YouTube page said worse, because haters got to hate anyway. But I actually would say the same. I was thinking 10 wins coming in. Now I'm thinking more like 8, which is a losing year. So where do you think they are?
Yeah, I'm the same. I was at 10 wins earlier in the season. I'm more at the 7-8 mark. And it's funny. I don't think they're going to be that bad on offense. I think their defense is lacking. Unless they make some moves, with some of these guys that have been cut, whether it's DB or linebacker, they're pretty set with the defensive line. But if the defensive line can't get there, then our coverage breaks down. One person that kind of stuck out to me in this preseason, though, that I did see some good things out of was Jamin Davis. Hopefully he takes that next step. It's I don't know. Defense to me is just this was your strong suit. All you had to do was build up the offense, and now your defense has declined. Like, come on, man. It's only been 2 years.
Yeah, I know it does. That's how it works in the NFL, though. I was on a radio show in Richmond, and the guy said, I think you should trade Antonio Gibson for a linebacker. Said it the other day. I said, well, number one, you're not getting a stud linebacker for Antonio Gibson. It's not happening. And two, you see why you don't do things like that if you have depth, because, man, something happens right away on there. You're not going to find a really good linebacker out there. Who's cutting a linebacker at the beginning of the season? Nobody. Mm-hmm. So help's not coming. You might get a guy here and there to help you a little, but that's all you're going to get. Maybe they can find it can really return kicks or punts, maybe. But I would say overall the offense looked fine to me. I mean, they showed vanilla the whole time. I know that Turner's not going to show you, Jahan Dotson's routes and things like that. They just went out there, but they got enough to get out there and do it. Although now with Brian Robinson's status, that hurts a little, but he'll be back eventually on that. And then defensively, though, they look like the same confused bunch that they've been for 2 years under Del Rio. I have to say, a big disappointment in Del Rio. I thought he'd be a better coordinator, but the front four is still okay. I mean, Chase will be back midseason. They're okay up front. The back is a little shaky, but sustainable. In the middle, it's just But every time you keep looking at the guys they missed off on man coverage what's going on here? And you gave up drives like the 2 games the starters played in, the defensive gave up points both drives. Man, I saw that all last year.
Well, and even look at the Ravens game. I mean, that first touchdown, that real long pass that the Ravens had, it was blown coverage. The corner released the wide receiver to nobody. The safety was not back there. You need to know whether or not your safety valve is back there. It's just a bunch of confusion again. And, I don't know what the issue with the defense is, but, to kind of mitigate the Brian Robinson injury / shooting, I feel like we're going to see a lot of tricks. I guess you could say trick plays. I know that the focus is, as long as Samuel is healthy, he's going to have more of a Deebo Samuel role where he's coming out of the backfield or catching swing passes out of the backfield and stuff like that. So maybe Samuel can kind of mitigate the injury or the loss of Brian Robinson for the first half. But yeah, they're not showing you any of that in the preseason. The one thing that I was impressed with after a down game against the Chiefs was Sam Howell. I mean, he accounted for 300 and some yards. He found the end zone once. We should have found him multiple times. But then again, for some reason they pulled De'Ami Brown. Like, this is a guy that needed to perform and needed to show what he is capable of. Plus, he has a rapport with Hal from college, and you yanked him after a drop. Now, I get it. You know, in a regular season game, that's going to kill you, and you are going to get benched. But it's the preseason, man. Let him work out his kinks. Let him get his hands under him. You know, I was kind of surprised with that, but Hal did impress, and I'm still with you. Hal will be the starter of this team within the next 2 seasons.
Yeah, when I told the junkies that the other day, they were like, "What?" So put it in that book. I mean, hey, listen, if Wentz plays lights out, he keeps the job.
Yeah.
But barring that, Hal's not afraid. I've liked Hal since I saw him in the first OTA. I said, wow, this guy's got the arm. He's got the eyes. He could work on his footwork some. That's one of the things he's got to do a little bit. But he's not afraid. Not afraid at this level. I think they picked up a real gem there.
Yeah, and I mean, like we talked about, you know, the previous draft, this guy would have been a first-round draft pick. He fell to the 5th. We don't know why. Maybe it's because he's never had a cheeseburger in his life. But, you know, hey, it seems like, you know, and as much as I hated the draft day trade where they traded with the Saints so that the Saints could come up and take Olave, you have gotten 4 solid players out of those picks that they gave you. You got Dotson, you got Brian Robertson, and you got Sam Howell, and then of course the tight end that we haven't seen yet, Cole Turner. You got 4 pretty decent players that are probably going to be on this roster for years to come. And I mean, I don't watch a lot of national coverage. I don't watch the Saints, but haven't heard much about Olave. I know he's, you know, it's preseason, but you would think a rookie might want to get some plays in.
Yeah, I agree. That trade really did does look good.
A trade that we all hated the day after. We hated it.
Well, my first thing was who's Dotson here, but
right
now you got Dotson. I just think they didn't want to show anything on him in the preseason, but he's pretty good. He's got a good hands, which is going to make the difference. So, you know, once again, it's a lot about Wentz and protection. Now, they did get some guards back finally to practice. Trey Turner finally was practicing, and Schweitzer is practicing, and I'm missing another one. It's practice. It's like, wow.
Didn't Norwell come back?
Yeah, Norwell. So the gang's all coming back.
And that was one, honestly, Rick, that was one Norwell we talked about where they weren't talking about what the injury was. We got scared. You know, that's your big money free agent that you went out to replace Brandon Sheriff, and he's all of a sudden not on the practice field. You're scratching your head, and Ron's not saying nothing. You know, that was one that bothered us a couple weeks ago. So it's good to have him back. And as we talked about, this team is going to go as far as the offensive line can take them. They've been ranked, I believe, in the top 5 in ESPN preseason polls. As far as the top rushing offensive line. So, you know, now it's time for them to go out and prove it. They've got some hosses, and this was an area that just a few years we were talking about. They were so thin at offensive line. Look, Ron and company have done a very good job of building this offense. That was where they needed to go. You know, they spent all those first round draft picks on defense, and the defense is the one is way behind the offense when it should be the other way around.
Yeah, it's interesting. Norwell finally spoke to the media, and I've gotten more out of prisoner of war videos, you know, saying they're treated well. I mean, the dude said 0.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't happen as much anymore. Man, that guy gave us nothing.
Yeah, but he doesn't want the defensive lineman of Jacksonville to go out there and target whatever issue he had.
I mean, but they just asked him some basic questions, and he's like, next question. I mean, it was like Brandon Sheriff was awful about that too. Some guys just don't want to talk, but the NFL makes them. So you can make me stand here, but you can't make me say something, you know, that kind of thing. The other one was interesting was Schweitzer was talking about how rock climbing has improved his game and his body. And I'm thinking, rock climbing, like 300 pounds hanging off a cliff, you know, but he said his hands are much better and his joints don't hurt as much. I'm not sure why, but I got to talk to him about this. I'd like to do an article about it. But I thought I
was going to say, I thought you were going to tell me you were going to take up rock climbing.
No,
I was going to say, just please make sure my name is in that will in ink before you start that, please.
Yeah, no, I'm not doing that. But I thought that was one of the more interesting things I've heard.
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be great strength for your hands, you know.
But Well, you're not supposed to really use your hands in the offensive line.
Well, you're not supposed to grab, but you can.
Yeah, I guess.
You can patty cake.
I don't know. That was an interesting one. Special teams. I'm still not sure who the returner is, or on anything. I think Gibson will do kicks. We'll see what happens on the cuts with who emerges out of all that for punts. But it's still I still look at why DeAndre Carter's not here, because I didn't see anything. They had guys returning kicks making horrible decisions on when to return it. One of them took it from the back of the end zone, got to like the 9. That kind of craziness on there. So I don't know. And Joey Sly, he missed that first field goal against Baltimore. I thought, okay, here we go. This is going to be one of those things. And then he hit 3. So, okay.
Yeah.
Converted. You still had Tressway, the best player.
Yeah, as I say, Joey and Tress are pretty much locks. Gibson's going to return punts. I could see probably Danny Johnson returning kicks to start the year until they find somebody. But I don't know. If for some reason DeAndre Carter falls off that Chargers roster, man, I get him on a bus to Washington as soon as possible.
Yeah. So they are opening against Jacksonville. And, everybody says, oh, they've got an easier schedule this year. And I said, listen, there are no easy games in the NFL for starters. We've seen them lose many of these kind of games. Now, they're not going to face Mahomes and those kind of guys too often because Mahomes would have lit them for 50. But it's a little bit. But, Trevor Lawrence was a very talented college guy. Last year, you have to give him a pass because that was a disaster with Urban Meyer. But he's back now with a year's experience. They've got a real coach. And they did upgrade with some free agents, including Brandon Sheriff. So I expect Jacksonville to come in here and give him a real game.
Well, and he's got some weapons now. He's got Marvin Jones again this year. They went out and paid Christian Kirk. He's got a couple weapons. They've got hopefully they get, well, not for week 1, maybe week 2. They got the rookie running back that they drafted last year that didn't get to play. I believe his name is also Brian Robinson. They have a running back named Brian Robinson as well. Yeah, this is a game that you should win. This is the first year of Doug Peterson, but Doug Peterson knows the Washington franchise pretty well from his time in Philadelphia. So, not much has changed. So I don't know. I think it'll be a lot closer than people expect.
You're going to hear a lot of drama about Carson Wentz, and he talked about it the other day and said, hey, listen, they got a new coach, new quarterback, or new players, and he said, I'm not even associating that with the January loss.
Well, yeah, and yeah, you got the Wentz thing. You got Brandon Sheriff coming back to Washington. You got Norwell playing against the Jaguars, who he played for last year. There's a lot of storylines for this, but at the end of the day, I think that I think Washington will edge them out on this one.
Yeah, maybe it's a Joey Sly field goal at the gun.
There you go.
All right. Well, we'll be back next week. You'll see we'll have a surprise on the show for the next one. And I won't blow it now. So I'll get off the air. I'm Rick Snyder.
I'm Matt.
And I'll be back next week.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to Seasons of Discontent on the Hogstye Network.